everyone, and welcome to our Seed World Giant Views video series. My name is Alex Martin, and I'm the editor of Seed World magazine. This morning, I'm joined by FanLis Chou, Vice President of Scientific Affairs and Policy of the American Seed Trade Association. Thanks so much for joining me this morning, FanLis.
It's nice to meet you, Alex.
It's been about, I guess, would it be about close to 4 months since you've joined the ASTA staff? And I'm so sorry we haven't even gotten to chat prior to now. So I thought we could start this conversation by diving a little bit into your background and how you came to start working with ASTA.
I came to work for ASTA because of the staff at ASTA. It's really top-notch staff, wonderful people. And Andy is just such a great leader. I think, being in the space, I've known the staff for a very long time, and that really attracted me to ASTA. I think the second thing is the ASTA membership. I'm really excited about the diversity of the ASTA membership. As they say, it's from alfalfa to zucchini. And I would add from aster to zinnia, because we always forget about the flower folks. So I'm excited to learn about the diversity in the companies, right? And diversity of issues. So we work on domestic issues, international regulatory policy issues, trade issues. And for me, it's that whole package of people and issues that attracted me to ASTA. Before coming to ASTA, I worked at USDA for the last probably 12 years, and it was my first and only job before ASTA. When I first joined the USDA, I worked for APHIS, the Animal Planet Health Inspection Service, working on phytosanitary issues. Actually, as a very junior staff under Rick Dungle. I don't think he remembered me from his time there. And then I was joined the biotech regulatory trade team at Foreign Agriculture Service. And right before I came to ASTA, I was supporting the Secretary's office as their agricultural biotechnology advisor. So in a sense, I feel like, agriculture has been my entire career, but before USDA, my only interaction with agriculture has been as a shopper at the supermarket. I was raised as a city girl in New York City, then grew up in suburban Pennsylvania. Never really thought about going into ag. In graduate school, I studied molecular genetics and biochemistry, looking at the reason that children were developing muscular dystrophy. And I really, really enjoy that work. So the way I came to USDA was through a fellowship that brought PhD level scientists into federal government. And there was no position to work on global health issues, which I was qualified to do. So I ended up working at APHIS, where they said they needed a scientist, and I was a scientist. So here I am. And I really fell in love with ag at APHIS, truly, truly fell in love. And as they would say, the rest is history, right? And so being new to ASTA this last few months, I've had to introduce myself a lot to people. And it's gotten me thinking about why I stuck with ag, like why I still love my job and love ag. And for me, just never really understanding ag when I was growing up, I've gained so much appreciation and respect for the people and the effort and the amount of work that goes into the food that we see at our supermarket, like the bounty that we have. It's just amazing. And I think we really take that for granted as a society, right? And to me, the food and ag sector remains amazing to me. It continues to just fill me with wonder. I'm always learning. I'm always excited. The people are fantastic and fascinating. I love the people. And so I say in here because I want to learn more and continue to be curious. And I want to share this wonder with others. Like, you have no idea what you're missing. This is such an exciting space, right? So this is how, for me to coming to ASTA is kind of coming home, see this is a foundation of everything. So it makes sense.
Well, perfect. Oh my gosh, I just love that, family, because, I actually didn't come from ag either. So what was your kind of first initial, impression when you jumped into agriculture? Did you have any misconceptions about ag that you had to correct in your own brain?
Sure. First I came into ag, and then I also came to the federal government. So there's a whole lot of misconceptions that I think I needed to kind of get rid of. I think for me, coming to the federal government, especially I was born in China. I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 10. And as a good, Asian immigrant, you don't think about going to the government or going to ag. I was a good Asian immigrant. I studied science. I was going to be a researcher or a doctor, right? And that it worked out great for what it's worth. So people in federal government actually works really hard and they're dedicated to their jobs and they really are professionals. So that was a misconception I think I had to get over. The thing about ag that I had to get over that it was a high tech industry. I think as an urbanite, we think, I have kids, right? So the first thing you learn about ag is, McDonald's, right? And I don't think we ever got beyond that, right? McDonald's and Little House on the Prairie. I never got beyond that. So the high techness of ag continued to amaze me. And for me, it's tremendous how we should be able to use that to bring newer people into agriculture.
Awesome. I think I would agree with you there. It's definitely a high-tech industry that you don't realize, especially if you haven't been a part of it ever and you grew up not learning anything about agriculture in its background. Kind of switching gears a little bit. I know you mentioned you've been, I guess, in DC for about 12 years now, you said, and you've kind of been in the thick of things policy-wise. So I wanted to ask if you had a favorite part about working so close to Capitol Hill.
I think one of the things that's really unusual about DC is that people come to DC to work, right? No offense to the city. Nobody moves here to live in DC. So people are really passionate about their work. And regardless whether they agree with you or not, I really appreciate that passion that people have. I think some of the policy work is very similar to science work. Is you're trying to solve a puzzle. And for me, when I was doing science in the lab, it was easier because I can control all the parameters, right? I can control all the variables. And when you're doing policy work, you're trying to solve a puzzle, but you cannot control the variables. And that's a challenge, I suppose, something I really like and something that's also really frustrating, right? So people think like policy work is like a game of chess. You have to think a couple steps ahead. You have to be strategic. You got to figure out how to win. That, to me, rings true a bit, but for me, I see it as like a big puzzle. Like everyone is trying to see the big picture and trying to put together a puzzle. Because for the most part, we're working on the same puzzle. But like some people like to start with the corner pieces, and some people like to start with the edge pieces, and some people like to start with colors or patterns. So I like working with the different types of the people and the different types of approach to try to figure out how you can move in the same direction to finish that big puzzle. And that's both for me, the frustrating part of the job that drives me insane, and also the amazing part of the job when it all works out really well. So
Perfect. And then what would you say drives you in your day-to-day work? What keeps you going every day?
Day-to-day is kind of hard right now under COVID conditions. Especially I have 2 little girls at home with their virtual learning. They're 8 and 5. So day-to-day, I don't have any time where it's uninterrupted thinking, right? So I think it's hard for me to say what day-to-day drives me. It's just to try to get through the day. It's what's driving me. But I think overall, I left China in 1981. And I was young, I was 10, but I really remember that our food was rationed, right? Our essential staples was rationed. My mother had a ration coupon book to buy these things. And coming to the US to see the amount of affordable food we have, and that my kid can have strawberries all year round, it's just amazing. And I think, I'm in my 40s. In the US, there's not many people in their 40s who kind of had that life experience. So they have kind of take that for granted. So for what drives me is that, as a society, I really want to ensure we can increase that accessibility to the bounty that we have to a broader part of our society. And to do that, I think we really need to kind of ensure that our ag system and our food system have the resources and the tools to continue to provide that to everyone. So I really want people to understand. I feel like an advocate for ag, right? I want people like me, like I was, to really understand that when they make a certain decision at the supermarket, for example, I don't want to use certain technology in the way my food is produced, that it has implications downstream, right? It really impacts how our farming community, our food community can bring that food to you. So I want them to have the information to really make an informed choice, especially when something is not, there's no safety considerations. We in the US have the luxury of making these choices, and in other places, and perhaps under COVID, like those are luxury choices. So I want people to really understand where our food is coming from and the implications of their decision.
Well, I think that kind of leads into a good next topic for us, which is I just wanted to ask what your favorite topic to tackle is when it comes to agriculture and the seed industry. It sounds like you're pretty passionate about education and making sure that, there's enough food for all and global hunger and things like that. But what's something that you feel passionately about that you could talk about all day long?
I can talk about this all day long. I think for me, it's just, it's always like, did you know? And, I do this to my daughter all the time. Because Thanksgiving's coming up, we watch a bunch of videos about all the food that comes around our Thanksgiving table and how they're harvested, how they're grown, where they're come from. I'm passionate about food. I'm passionate about growing food. I'm passionate about, how people grow different foods in different ways and how we can continue to bring new products to market. For me as a scientist, I'm passionate about how you use science in the area of food and why we don't leverage science as much as we do in the medical field, in the agricultural field, right? And why people feel so differently when we are using innovation in food. I guess it seems like a dirty word where innovation in medicine is never a dirty word. So, and my husband's in the medical profession. So to me, that's my passion, is to bring that innovation to ag and make people understand that innovation is important to ag and make people want to push for innovation in agriculture.
Awesome. Well, family, I thought something else we could talk about that would be fun is kind of this idea of being onboarded during a pandemic. I wanted to ask you, it's not something I've had to do, of course, but how is it learning the ropes of ASTA and making this transition when, I guess you're not working in the office full time like you normally would on an onboarding kind of job?
Right. Well, I can't say that I'm unhappy that I'm not in the office all the time, but having 2 kids at home, there are days when I really, really want to go to the office. I feel like I'm one of those people that's like, I can't wait till I can go back to the office. But I think it really helped to have a very communicative team, right? So ASTA is this very small staff. We work together really closely. And everyone is super approachable. Andy's super approachable. So I always felt like I could just pick up the phone or dial in and ask questions. One of the harder things is that as I'm onboarding under normal circumstances, I would be traveling and going to meet with our members. And that's a part of the job I love. I love going to the field and see what the heck is happening and, see all the cool technologies people are doing and just being in the field and just being outside. And I really miss that. So I think getting to know our members through video chat is just not ideal. And for me to be effective at my job, I need people to trust me. And for people to trust me, they have to know me. And it's really hard to get to know someone over video chat, right? So that's, I think, another disadvantage. I think the advantages is that I'm no longer bounded by time zone. I no longer have to worry about childcare if I'm going to be traveling. So that's tremendously helpful. I have participated on so many panels where, you have panelists from all over the world and hundreds of participants, and that would not have been possible if we were all going to be in one place. So I think we're reaching more people. It's about me then following up on that connection, right? So it's been a process, not all great, but not all horrible either. And I think, Andy was right when he said there are going to be certain things we're going to keep, even, once we go back to some kind of normal. And I think it's been a really valuable experience in figuring out how to do things in a more innovative way. And that's been good.
Perfect. Well, let's kind of shift gears a little bit then. And since starting your role, what have you been trying to focus on and do? And I guess what have you been trying to accomplish? I'm sure it's difficult with COVID. You mentioned it's hard to connect with people and you need people to meet you and trust you. But so what have you been trying to do since you joined ASTA?
So I think the couple priority issues that ASTA has been working on has been the United States federal regulatory policy around genome edited plants. And this started before COVID and it continues to go, which is great. Starting in the Obama administration, they started this initiative about really revamping and streamlining and modernizing our regulatory processes with a view to these new technologies and products that could be developed using these new technologies. And this year at FanLis, they codified their rule revision, which was a huge step. So ASTA has been prioritizing working with FanLis as they're implementing these rules. So that's been a priority. And just a few months ago in October, EPA put out their proposed rule on exemptions for certain products developed through these technologies. So that's been my primary focus, is to look at that rule and see how it would impact and what's the potential it is for our industry. For me, the priority here is to ensure that these tools get deployed as widely as possible, right? Genetic engineering, the classic kind of technology we've been using, has been really tremendously helpful in the big row crops, right? The folks that are going to come to the CSS meetings. But I really want these tools in the hands of our produce developers, our produce developers, our flower developers, our fruit trees, right? There's so much potential to be unlocked. And so making sure that the regulatory policies is in place to incentivize innovation in this space is important, and it's something that I'm working on. And also, like, internationally, trade is, for us, is international. We need to find a marketplace for our products that our farmers producing, both domestically and internationally. So we're working on international trade policies as well. I think the other aspect is just about information sharing. People need to want this product, or if not be against it. So another priority for ASTA has been just trying to figure out how to provide information in a useful way, in a way that's accessible to people, or that is kind of in a way that they can receive it, about technology and agriculture and the C sector. And this is what I've been working on.
Perfect. Well, then I just have one last question for you today. And it's your first ASTA show coming up. I wish it wasn't virtual for you, but what's something you're looking forward to being able to, I guess, learn or do at this virtual ASTA CSS show?
So I got a sneak peek at the big bar. So it's kind of interesting that they replicate the hotel. A couple of things that I'm really looking forward to is, one, I'm looking forward to meeting people. I think there's lots of opportunity to interact. I'm also really looking forward to product demonstration, because I think it's super cool. And this virtual setting really allows another level of that, right? So I'm really looking to understand how some of our partners, their business model, some of their exciting new products. So these are a couple of things that I'm really interested in learning. And I want to know what our signature drink is from the big bar.
Perfect. Well, I hope you get the opportunity to meet so many people in the industry, because they're all fantastic. And I'm sure they're all super excited to meet you. And hopefully this interview helps give them a little snapshot about you and a little bit more about some of your personality and what you're hoping to accomplish now at ASTA. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Alex. It's nice to meet you. And I hope people do not hesitate to reach out to me. My information is on the ASTA website. I'm always happy to talk about ag.